Yo. All right, let's do this. Unit 5, Lesson 10, Building an App, Color Sleuth. That's the name of the game. Same kind of deal. We're making the game. The aims, whatever. For this kind of lesson, it's the same kind of thing. Okay, so same spiel. There'll be a Google question. It'll basically just be the same as yesterday of summarizing what you do in your own words. People did a good job with that. I just want you to get in the habit of, it's basically like a log of what you did. Throughout May, when you make your own project, I will be asking you to write a little bit of a summary of what you did as a way for me to check everyone's progress at once. So it's just a little bit of that habit. It's, as you saw, it's very easy. Just a way to keep on track. These are the ones that you're required to do. Number 8 is another like instructional dialogue. So I can see if I can get my friends involved again. And yeah, the full color sleuth is due on Friday, but as you saw, we're taking it piece by piece. I've broken it apart for us with some extra time on Friday for any issues you have. So let's jump in. I'll introduce, there's one introductory piece that I'll talk through, and then I will talk about like some common issues that people saw, that I saw in the comments that people wrote, which is why I asked you to do that. Cool. So jumping right in, we are in lesson 10. We did yesterday, we went through number 3 is the dialogue. We did set property, where we changed the color of the backgrounds and then changed one to be a little bit different. Then we went through on how to make a random button. And that one is really complicated because that adds together text with random numbers and variables, and it puts everything together. The purpose of this is to show you basically what you can do with what we've learned in a complicated example. And then we went in number 7, we randomized that button choice. Some people had some questions. So again, at the end, I'll go over how to fix those. But let's jump into how to make a random color. Well, let me just see if I can find where people are going to be. Wow, here we go. I don't know if this is right. Hey guys, please help me out. Alexis. Hey, we can use the same technique to make a random color. I was thinking the same thing. We can use the RGB command with 3 random numbers. Well, right. So rather than hard coding the string like var color equals RGB 230 155 0, we can make 3 random numbers between 0 and 255, put them each in a variable, then use them to make the color. Yup, I think the color should look something like this. And then look at what they actually do. I can't scroll with socks on my hands. Instead of var, I can't suck. Okay. Instead of it all being like this, which is what it was yesterday, where var color was, instead what they did, and this is really clever, they broke it apart so that each of these, the different color components, was its own variable, stored as a random number. I know this is complicated, but each piece by itself we've done before. Each of these numbers, so when you run the code, maybe it'll be like 200, 150, and then those numbers get plugged in automatically. 200, 150. And then that time, the color gets assigned that new RGB. So it works down, and it's kind of complicated, but it's very clever. Genius! That's what I just said. But wait a second. Now I'm worried about making our slightly different color. For testing with the orange, we just added 20 to each of the RGB values. we can do that too. If we make diff color after color, we can just add 20 to each variable before making a new string. Right! The code should look something like this. And then here, so notice there's no, so this will be like, basically this is first, make color. And then we're gonna make the different one, the one that's slightly different. So it's gonna look similar, but there's no var, because we're not recreating R. We're just changing the value. We're just changing it to add 20 to each of the different color components. So it'll be slightly brighter, right? The colors are getting larger, so it's gonna be slightly brighter. And then we'll store that as diff color. Yes, the code is the same here, but the values of R, G, and B have changed. Good, but I think there's still a problem. What about numbers that are close to 255? For example, there's a chance that 3 random numbers we make will come out to be something like 250, 250, 250. But if we add 20 to each of those, the values will be over 255. I don't know what happens if you try to specify a color with a value greater. Where'd I go? Oh no. Greater than 255. Jeez, this is a long one. Well, I know that's not actually a problem. If you try to specify a color as something like RGB 270, 290, 300, the actual color will end up being RGB 255, 255, 255 anyway. It doesn't break the system. Lexus, you're so wise. I tried it back when we were doing turtle programming. Okay, that's great news. Is this almost over? Okay, that's great news, but I thought of another problem. Even if large values for RGB don't break the system, our problem is that color won't look very different. The difference between 250, 250, 250 and RGB 255, 255, 255 is practically nothing. It will look basically the same. Oh, wait, I'm doing the wrong voice. It will look basically the same and the person won't be able to play very well. Right. Well, here's an idea. What if we don't generate random numbers between 0 and 255? What if we just generate them between 0 and 235? Then no matter what, if we add 20, we can't possibly go above 255. Brilliant. Okay, so we go back when we generate the random... So go back when we generate the random color in the first place, and it should be something like this. Okay, so you remember up here we saw this code, right, where we set up the number. What they're saying now is, in order to make it so when we make diff color, it's actually different, we need to like cap it. It's basically the same thing as like when we did random numbers with like the width, we capped it so it didn't go too far in the x direction. It's the same kind of thing here. We're just capping it so that when we add 20, it's still a meaningful change. Right. And then you can use the same thing we came up with before, adding 20 to each of the RGB values to make diff color. Nice. Okay, let's try it. End scene. So what we're doing here is exactly that. You have more stuff than this. I'm not going to build out everything for the project. But what it's asking you to do is, instead of color being like this, we have like the red component being a random number from 0 to 235. And then we use that when defining R, or color rather, we just use R instead, something like this. And then later, after you change that, we're going to rechange what R is to be R plus 20. And notice there's no error, nothing, no issues. It fixed, it fixed everything. There's no problem with this. It's all good. So the issue that people had yesterday, a really common one, the most common issue is when people were going to, let me just define, you actually had code here, but Actually, I'll just put in the code. We've gone through it, and if you haven't, it'd be nice to see it. So this is the rand button ID. So rand button ID equals the word button, right? Like this is button 1 here, so we want it to be a random button. So the word button plus random number 1 to 4. Okay, so if I can type it and it goes off here. It gives me an error, but it's a fine error. It says that it's not actually used in your program. If you see this error, this is actually a really good sign that you're doing this mistake here. The mistake here is, so what a lot of people did was this. They typed this and they tried to run it and it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is even though you typed the right thing and it matches, you check the spelling, you check camel case, you checked everything, it's the same. It's still saying is defined but not called. That's because this is a string of text. But if I get rid of the quotes, now it works. And so now, I don't know, yeah, it's gonna work. Now the changed color is, it jumps around to different ones. It's the same thing for diff color. So if you had like diff color here, that would be one reason why it doesn't work. Or even just the word, like if you had the quotes, then you get that error, defined but not called. That means look for quotes, you didn't do it right. If you can't, it doesn't let you backspace for some reason, unless you do the backspace at the end, or you can turn it into text to get rid of the quotes. Okay. The other two things to do, number 10 and then number 11. These don't have dialogues for some reason, even though I kind of wish they did because it's kind of tricky. So we're going to define a function. We haven't done functions in a long time, but we're basically going to define a new function called setBoard. Okay, that's easy. SetBoard. And then you're going to take all of the code. And yes, that I am including here the vars. And you can even watch. They mean everything. So yes, for those playing the home game, we are creating local variables for now, but it doesn't really matter. So what they did, well, I guess you could do that. I don't know, whatever. I don't like that. That's fine. So we just make a function, setBoard, and then yeah, you can drag it, or you can just highlight it and Control X. Control V, or you can do what they do here, and that's that. That's it all fits inside of the function. So that's all you do in number 10. Okay, and this is actually very easy. Today's an easy day. I want to make sure that you can catch up if you had issues yesterday. They just want you to add this console log so that inside at the bottom of your function, so that it'll pop up at the bottom of the screen what ID was called. That way you can keep track of it if you have to debug later. So, okay, we've gone through the major issues. Office hours are by Google Meet now. You only have to do through 11 today. You can keep going if you want, but I assume you have other work to do. So in your own words, what features did you add to the color game today? Or what did you get stuck on? I do look them over, especially if you do it earlier in the day. Like if you do it by 2, I definitely read it. I don't always read it through them the same day if you do it later in the day. Because I have meetings and stuff after work. Yeah, same question, same stuff. You can do it. Stay strong. Bye.